What is going on, shrimp keepers, or should I say all you aquascapers out there? This is Rob with flipaquatics.com. Today we are talking about one of the largest aquascaping contests in the United States, and that is at Aquashella. So check these tanks out. This is actually done by one of the YouTubers, Brooklyn, and a couple of her people, and they did a really good job, just the depth of this aquarium. Now the cool thing about this contest is they can only use stuff that is provided. So they were provided with dragonstone, with the accent rocks, they were provided with sand, all different substrates, they were provided with the plants. So it's really cool to see what they can create. This is a really cool tank. And moving over, this tank is really interesting. The reason I say that is because I've never seen something done like this. They actually have a cave that goes under substrate that's above it. So I'm not 100% sure how they accomplished that, but it's really cool how they did it. So again, the really cool thing about this tank is that there's a cave, there's substrate on top of it. How they were able to do that, I'm not 100% sure, but it's super pretty. I love how they're able to plant above it. So I got to figure out how they did that, but they got some cereal stone in here. They got some really pretty wood, some nooks and crannies. They even have some rummy nose tetras in there. There's 3 beautiful rummy nose tetras. Those guys are one of our favorite fish at Flip Aquatics. We plan on doing a big display with them. But just a really cool scape. They use a lot of ferns, some moss. They even got some Amazon swords over here, so really beautiful. Now, this one got 3rd place, so I agree, this one looks really good. The crystal clarity of this tank is what really makes it. Like, this thing is just so transparent as far as the water goes. It almost looks like glass. Tons of really cool aquascape. I love how they were able to combine so many pieces of driftwood to make it look like one monster stump. And it's just really cool. This is what inspires me as we're setting up our studio, our gallery, whatever you want to call it, as we're setting it up, doing these huge monster tanks. This is stuff I look at, I'm just like, man, like, how cool would it be to recreate this at a larger scale? So I think this tank is beautiful. It's got a lot of cool characteristics, some awesome plants. So a lot of nooks and crannies for fish to hide, shrimp to hide. Just a really cool example of an awesome aquascape. Next up, we have a completely different style tank. Now this one has the river stone, which is nice and round. It has a ton of plants. So that would be my only feedback to this, is it's too many plants for my liking. It almost looks like an overgrown jungle, which is pretty cool in its own sense, but a little much for me. I like the hardscape, I like the rocks, the driftwood, all that, but the plants is a little too much, but still, beautiful tank. Anybody having this in their house would absolutely love it. I know I would love to have it, but again, I think there's other really great scapes here. Okay, so this scape got 5th place. Now, I like what they did here. They really created some cool mountains. It reminds you of almost like a jungle in Peru, like going up hills. They got a ton of dragonstone, tons of moss. They got some nice stem plants in here, some hair grass in the back. I love kind of the shelf on the top, Frank. I think that's really cool how they did that. I think it's cool you were looking at how all the fish are kind of in the bottom corner. That's kind of where they feel safe. Kind of like a nice little nook for them to hide out. There's even one in the dead center over there underneath the hill, or underneath the overhang. And so, really cool scape. Definitely deserves 5th place. This aquascape is actually one of my favorites I've seen so far. The reason I say that is look at what they did. They literally have a piece of driftwood that attaches to a rock that's kind of overhung. It reminds me of like an Avatar tank, like a floating island, because to be able to balance that dragonstone in the middle like that without it falling is pretty impressive. I love how they did the lighting on the back. It almost looks like the tank is way deeper than it actually is. Ember tetras, always love me some ember tetras. So I love seeing those in Escape. Just their use of depth really brought this tank together. And so I'm surprised that this tank only got 4th place. So we need to see what 1st, 2nd, and 3rd are, because this tank is absolutely amazing. Now again, we talked about this when we talked about the American Shrimp Contest. One thing I think is always important is for anybody to get out there, aquascape, do their things. So this is an example of people just jumping in there, having fun with it. You could tell like there's not as much driftwood, you know, pretty basic, but they went for it. They did it. They weren't scared. And look at those huge tiger barbs back there. I think those are the green or black tiger barbs. They're just huge fatties. So this is a fun scape. This is something that I feel like I could potentially recreate. Maybe mine wouldn't be nearly as good as this, but still really cool to see people getting out there and just making it happen. There's another tank over there that my buddies did, and so I'm excited to see what their tank looks like now that it's full of water. But always fun to get out there, aquascape, do your thing, and enjoy the hobby. So I think what happened is they haven't fully announced 1st, 2nd, and 3rd yet, because I only see the 5th and 4th place, maybe 6th place we saw too. But because I'm looking at some of these scapes and these things are awesome, and so I'm like, how did these not place? So I'm really interested to see who actually wins this. This is one of my favorite scapes. This one is done by Shelby and Grant Eater. They actually had some help too. I forget who their other helper was, but Shelby and Grant are great people. And they put this together, and it's so cool what they did. They use this really interesting wood. I don't even know what it is. It might be like a form of Mapani wood. It's just really interesting. They sawed it all, they pieced it together, created a lot of depth. They use a lot of plants. So I wish you guys could have saw it before they put the plants in there, because it showed the amount of work that they put in to make this thing awesome. And then all this rock down here, they busted that up by hand. So it's just crazy the amount of effort that went into this. And this tank just has tons and tons of depth, lots of nooks and crannies for fish. You can see these type of rummy-nosed tetra, I believe, like a naked rummy-nosed tetra. Yeah, those are the naked face rummy-nosed tetras, I believe. Those guys are super cool. So really cool scape. Again, I'm gonna ask Shelby and Grant what they're gonna do with this, because they get to keep it after this. You never know, I might be able to convince him to let it go. So this tank is actually done by my good buddy Dan. Uncle Dan, shout out to you. Him, Jacob, and Scott Crow scaped this together. They were kind of the last minute ringers. They came in and made it happen. I think we had a cancellation. And for a bunch of novices, they killed it. I was telling them yesterday that they did a phenomenal job. Like, I would definitely not be able to create something like this. And you take 3 people that have never worked together, put them on an aquascape. I feel like they did a really amazing job. And Dan, if you guys have never met him, he's a huge part of Aquashella here and just a phenomenal guy. So it was cool watching him create this and see what he did with it. And just a really, really fun scape. Now this tank, I absolutely love. And the reason being is, again, it is so crystal clear. It literally looks like looking in there and just seeing air. Like you couldn't tell that there's water in there if you didn't see all the little fine micro bubbles. I think it's awesome how they did like one hill going to the left, one hill going to the right, a nice little crevice in the center, some really big plants on both sides. It creates like a really big aquascape. It feels huge in there. So I'd be really interested to see, once you put fish in there, kind of where they find their place, what they like, what they enjoy, where they would hang out. I imagine that they would all find their place right in the center, the focal point of the tank. And this scape is honestly really pretty. And it's so cool to see these aquascapes because it really inspires you to get out there and create something. Make your own aquascape, have fun with it, do something different. And these are just really pretty. One thing that I love about these next 3 tanks we're gonna talk about, they're some of my favorites, if not my absolute favorites, just because they begin using black water. So you can tell this tank, it has the driftwood in it, it has a tint to the water, it has all the fish in it, which really make it pop. You see plecos everywhere, you see angelfish, you see some type of tetra, I'm not 100% sure what they are. They might be a rasbora. And then you got all these rare corridors all around. You have all these river stones that look really good. I mean, they just did a phenomenal job. The plants they picked, everything about it just screams a professional scape. And so this one is probably my favorite so far. I don't know. There's so many good ones, it's hard to pick the absolute favorite, but I love the look of this tank. Now this tank, they actually set it with guppies, which I think is so fun, so cool. There's some really rare looking guppies. I've never seen them before. They almost have like a yellowish, blue, white hue to them. Really interesting. Tons of driftwood in this tank. Like, this reminds me of like an overgrown mountaintop. So really cool, tons of plants. Not my favorite aquarium, but still a lot of fun. And yeah, it's just cool to see all the different styles that different aquascapers have. This tank is done by my good buddy, Melanie. She is just an awesome aquascaper. She specializes in black water, so it's really cool to see, you know, how she kind of created this, like a tree stump underwater. It's flooded, there's some plants growing up, there's all the leaf matter, and just a beautiful, beautiful aquascape. Like, even the fish that she picked are super beautiful. They're a type of Danio. I don't even know what they are, but they look really good in this scape, how they move through the rock work, the woodwork. I would say out of all the tanks so far, this is the one that I would really want to take home. So let me ask you guys, which tank is your favorite? I'm going with this one. Melanie did a great job. This is a phenomenal scape, absolutely stunning. I love it so much. I think Joe and Will were part of this too, so I got to give them a shout out, but they just did a really good job. This is my favorite tank. Let me know down below which tank was your favorite. Just put the timestamp on which one it was, and we'll see which one you guys thought should have won. And later on today, we'll figure out which one did win. So you guys make it a great day. As always, God bless. We'll catch you on the flip side.